Okay, so as I mentioned, after the abuse that occurred in high school because of the shooter machine, my grandpa said, he came up with this idea from the Bible. It's meta psychiatry stuff. Like he's like, when you're in the flow, you never go into the past. So when you're in the flow, you're in the eternal moment. So never bring up the past, never bring up the abuse that happened, never talk about what happened back then, and just be in the moment from now on. And I was cool with that. I was like, yes, that's good. That's what I want. I was cool because I just wanted to move on. I was like, okay. So I never brought up the past all through college, even after my mom. I showed my mom and dad the Quadrilateral. My mom was like, oh my God, you have schizophrenia, and that's why your shot got messed up because you started to become mentally ill, and that's what happened, and that's, because she basically wanted to blame the reason why the abuse happened on me, that I had a mental illness, and I knew that, it was a defense mechanism on her part so that she could tell herself that the abuse that was done to me was valid and it was justified because I was mentally ill, but I wasn't. I actually discovered the theory of everything. I was never mentally ill. But so my mom wanted to believe that, so that's what she wanted to believe. But even then, I never brought up the shoot away machine and I never brought it up because I was the one. My grandpa was like, if you're in the flow, you never bring up the past, and I was all into that. I was like, okay, cool. I'll never bring up the past. I'll be in the moment, and I'll not make things happen, and I'll just be one with the universe. And that's the way I was all through college. I was trying to be like my grandpa taught, like, oh, I'm one with the universe. Don't make things happen. You can't force things. Everything is one. Don't bring up the past. Just be in the moment. Just there is no time. There is no time. Don't even be in the moment because it's the eternal moment and there is no time. And so I tried to be like that, right? And so that's the way that I was acting. But as I said, and even the whole thing about my grandpa was like, and also, what Ryan really wanted was he wanted independence. That's why he was fighting with his dad. Now, I didn't know about the shoot away machine at first. But, at first I was like, okay, cool. My grandpa's right. Maybe that's what I really want. I just want independence because when you're independent, then, then you can't be basically, just independence is good, right? Yeah, just be independent and everything's one and everything's energy. So I'm like, okay, cool, grandpa. Yeah, okay. So, but then I realized that the shoot away machine was what messed up my shot. And I wanted to, in a way, I kind of guess I wanted to tell my dad, but I knew my dad would never let me tell him because I was never allowed to talk about the past. And that was my dad's big thing too. He was like, never bring up the past. When I visited him one time, he was like, hey, Ryan, if you bring up the past, you bring up anything, about basketball or what happened, or I'm going to kill you pretty much. So I'm like, okay. So I knew that I wasn't able to tell my dad about the shoot away machine because I wasn't allowed to talk about the past. And my mom too. My mom's would, never talk about the past. And then even my grandma, my mom and my grandpa told my aunt about that I should never talk about the past, never talk about the abuse that happened. And so my aunt was all into that. And everyone was like, okay, yeah, just never bring up the past, never bring up that abuse. So I was like, okay. But at that time, like I said, I showed my mom and dad the Quadrilateral, and they thought I had schizophrenia, but I didn't. And I ended up graduating from college with a 3.1 GPA, but my mom thought, oh my God, you got a D in your nutrition class, your psychology of nutrition class. The only reason why I got a D was because they messed up on the Scantron. I got an A in that class, but I wasn't able to show the professor because my mom forced me to go to Kauai after I graduated. So I graduated from college, and then I went to Israel for a week. And I tried to show I tried to get the Quadrilateral big in Israel, but it didn't work out. But I put my stuff online and everything. But my mom was like, oh my God, you have schizophrenia. You're not allowed in Los Angeles. You need to go live in Kauai. And I wanted to stay in Los Angeles, and I wanted some help. I wanted to show professors. And I was telling my mom, I was like, Mom, can I stay here? And can you, I graduated. I had a bachelor's degree in psychology. Can I get a master's degree? Can you help me get a master's degree? My mom was like, you have schizophrenia. Like I said, I never seen my mom. Don't get this in your mind like I was interacting with them. I'm talking on the phone. They hadn't seen me since high school. So people are going to think like, oh, well, you must have been interacting with them and they must have had legitimate reasons to believe you were schizophrenic. No, I never interacted with them. That's the problem. They never actually had any physical interaction with me, only on the phone, and only for short periods. She would just hang up on me. And all that happened was I said, Mom, I discovered a big theory, but I would like to go to get a master's degree. I would like to continue school, and I would like to do that. But she's like, no, you have schizophrenia. You can't go to school. You can't go to college. You're mentally ill. You have schizophrenia. You need to go to a doctor, and you can't work. You can't go to college. the only thing you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, you're going to be on Social Security. You're not going to be able to work. You have schizophrenia. You need to start taking medicine now. And I was like, I don't have schizophrenia, which I did not. So my mom said, and you're not allowed to stay in Los Angeles. You can't stay with your grandma in Los Angeles. You need to go to Kauai to live with your grandpa. And so I was like, no, Mom, please just, but there was nothing I could do. She didn't believe that the quadrant model. And I wanted to talk to my dad, but my mom wouldn't let me talk to my dad. My mom was like, your dad doesn't want to talk to you. He's embarrassed that he has a schizophrenic son. He did, so I'm not gonna get into that, but she was just like, your dad will not talk to you. He doesn't want to ever talk to you again. He doesn't want to talk to you. Now go to Kauai, and you have to live with your grandpa, and you need to see a doctor, and you need to start taking medicine. You're going to be on medicine for the rest of your life. And I'm like, Mom, I want to go to, but no. And she hangs up on me, right? So I ended up having to go to Kauai. I didn't want to go to Kauai, but I went to Kauai, and I'm with my grandpa. And then, like I said, my grandpa was basically mistreating me. My grandpa's whole thing was, well, the thing is, the reason why Ryan invented the quadrant model, because he didn't believe the quadrant model. He was like, he thought that, he was making fun of it. He and my uncle were making fun of me. And he's like, the reason why, you believe in the quadrant model is because, or you invented this is because this is an ego strategy, a manipulative strategy, an ego strategy to try to stay dependent on your mom and dad. Because you have a fragile ego, you want to stay dependent on your mom and dad. So you're using this, you made this up. It's not real. It's not a real theory. You made this up. But my grandpa was like, I know you're not, you're not schizophrenic. You don't have any symptoms of schizophrenia. Your mom is wrong. But my mom and dad apparently were telling my grandpa like, you're crazy. Of course he's schizophrenic. You're crazy. He is. But my grandpa was like, no, he doesn't have schizophrenia. He doesn't have any symptoms of schizophrenia. My grandpa was a psychology, has a PhD in psychology. He's like, he's not schizophrenic, but he has a fragile ego and he wants to stay dependent on you guys. So he made this up in order as a kind of strategy to stay dependent on you. And it's like, no, I didn't fucking make it up to stay dependent on them. I did actually discover the theory of everything. But then my mom was like, no, apparently my mom said, you're crazy. My mom and dad were like, no, my grandpa's crazy. He's just a spiritual psychologist. He's not a real psychologist. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Of course Ryan has schizophrenia. So then I'm stuck in Kauai. And then, as I said, my grandpa's basically abusing me up there. He's like, we're trying to make me independent. If I could, I already talked about all this. I don't have to go through the whole story again. But my point is, if I wasn't on Kauai and I didn't have my grandpa like, make you independent, acting like an asshole. And if I wasn't in like this horrible